of the things about joining this kind of a group is it's very accepting of all spiritual paths. You see, from my perspective, it really doesn't matter which one has had the most lifetimes practicing. It also doesn't matter if the person believes he or she has no spiritual path or course. It doesn't matter. That person can still effort to be fully human, which is compassionate, caring, and deeply connected to the world around them without fear. Some will call that the epitome of psychological growth. And if you call it that, that is fine with me. Just do it. Others take comfort in the fact that so many people over so many ages have actively sought out the divine. It's a very tricky time now because back in the 1960s, I guess it was, a movement went through, certainly here in North America, what is it called? The God is Dead movement, which is kind of an interesting thing if you think about it. And but it really had a profound influence on people, because you see, most people put their faith more in how their life is working out. So if their life is going through a problem stage, and sometimes those problem stages go on for years. You know, look at Nelson Mandela. He was imprisoned all those years, and look how he came out. If you asked him, did he find a spiritual path, he would tell you no. He would tell you he just found what works, and that it's much better for everyone if people care about each other. So it isn't necessary. He did the things of a good spiritual aspirant. He practiced them. He was very diligent, very disciplined in respecting others. But he didn't do it because he thought it was part of a spiritual path. So from my perspective, I don't really care what helps people raise to higher levels of functioning. You don't have to call yourself anything. If you can just have a sense of respect for not only other people, but for the fact that the divine greets you in your relationships with others. You don't like the word God? Many people don't. Most of those can somehow deal with the concept of the divine. Others can't. Still others refer to the divine or God as the absolute or the supreme. And those terms are very problematic for some people. For others, they are utterly liberating. So rather than quibbling on who's got the right terminology, find what works for you. Other people, one of my students of years ago now, really didn't care much for organized religion of any kind. And but when she was out in nature, her heart would just open so much. And she would say, nature is my cathedral. That's where I worship. Well, she didn't worship a being with a name. She just went into this place of pure reverence. Does that count? You bet it does. Because for those excursions into nature, for seeing those flowers bloom every spring, and she particularly liked the state flower of Colorado, it's the columbine. She particularly liked columbines. And when they would bloom, they're really exquisite little flowers. And when they bloom, her heart would just open. But it would for when the trees budded up, the fruit trees put on buds, you see, and their blossoms came out, and then ultimately their fruit. Or just seeing the sky against a river or behind a mountain. This woman's heart would get so big and so far open, she could receive the divine. And fortunately for her, it didn't matter whether other people really understood what she was doing or not. She just allowed herself to open in this way. So from my perspective, I think the world has enough dogma. So I try to get away from dogma and try to help people find what is true for them. And the good news is that the divine is everywhere. And for those who can feel it in nature, get out in nature. Others experience the divine with people that they really care about. If you're sitting with someone whom you know really loves you, some people can feel it. Oh, this is like being loved by a greater force, not by this person's personality, which it's sometimes confused that that's where love comes from. It comes from the other person's personality, but it doesn't really. Love is, it's everywhere. And you're either open to allowing it to flow through you or you're closed. And so everybody has some degree of being closed. You know, some have it maybe more than others, but we're not comparing really. We're just saying find the place where you are closed and invite love in. That's why we talked about love last time and talked about some of the poetry of the mystics, because they can talk about love in a way that tends to really move inside one's heart. So it's immaterial what name you put on the divine, because, you know, it's just a transient label anyway. What is real is utterly quiet, utterly pristine, and utterly transformative in your life. And so while none of you can go win the war out there, you can make headway in the internal war. And you'll find it's always with that I that wants to have something its way, even if that I wants to push someone else away. It's very interesting because in a way it's all attachment. You see, you're attached to what you want, but I can tell you that people have very strong aversions who are very attached to them. So those attachments are always there. And I recommend, don't judge yourself, just look. What am I attached to? Is it my image? For some it is. Is it my intellect? For some it is. Is it my wealth or holdings? For some it is. Is it my good name, reputation? For some it is. Is it my family? For many it is. Now, this is not to say, it's very tricky because you see, most people confuse attachments for love. And they're not the same thing. Because attachments make the space of the relationship smaller, whereas love makes the space of the relationship even more spacious. And so as you look at your future, however you see it, some of you maybe see rather bleak futures. Others of you see very, very hopeful futures. And I don't even care which one you see. That doesn't matter, because they're all products of your own mind. What's important is to look. You look at what the mind fixates its attention on. And if you really do that, you will learn something, probably something quite profound. Where is my mind? What is it doing? What is it feeding me at a subtle or quiet level? And what is it screaming at me? It's maybe the most important question you can ask yourself now.